we're going to do a text study, and it's always a wonderful problem to have that I do not have enough sheets. And that the room is overflowing. So this might be a little bit more frontal than I would normally enjoy it to be, but I hope that you will raise your hand and share something if you would like to. Before I start, and this has, I guess it doesn't have nothing, but it's not the theme of my teaching today. I just want to say, because we haven't yet explicitly said, and I want to make sure that it's said, what's going on in Iran, for many of you, it's a place that you grew up, or you had members of your families grow up. And I know for friends of mine who are Persian, that there was a dream that they've always had of being able to go back to Iran and to be able to see the ways in which their families lived and the places in which their families lived. And given that it's not my family's descent, I can't speak to it from an emotional level. But what I can say is that I hope that what is going on, though of course it means destruction, and of course it means fear, and of course it means elements, if not full out war, what it also hopefully can mean for those of you for whom you have lived there or your families have lived there, it can hopefully mean a way of return. And it can hopefully mean a time of peace. And it can hopefully mean a way for you to return to places that you were thrown out of, and places that you did not ever feel safe, and maybe believed that in your lifetime you would never feel safe again. But I hope for you, and really for all of us, I hope that you are seeing this as a way home, as a way of acknowledging the home that is beautiful to you and nostalgic for you, and that you one day can return to, even if you have never been there before, to this ideal place that once was a beautiful place of memory and of family growing. And I know that it's hard to be thrown out of something that was once so meaningful, and I hope that what is happening right now, again, it obviously comes with a lot of fear and a lot of destruction, but I hope that it comes with an element of hope. So I'm going to pass out a sheet that is like maybe for every 2 or 3 people. And if you're okay just listening, maybe don't take a sheet. If you're more of a visual learner, maybe do take a sheet. I don't know. Do whatever you need to do. I want to talk about words today. I want to talk about how words are both important and can build up and can also destroy. As a rabbi, and a week like this, the comment that I hear most is, what are you going to say? What are you going to write? What is the shul going to send out in words that can provide us with comfort? And that's really overwhelming, because there's nothing to say that will be good for everybody. And there's also not anything that I can say that you haven't yet heard, or that you don't yet know, or that a news source isn't yet telling you. So that's not to say that your rabbis shouldn't say anything, or that your leaders shouldn't say anything. But a lot of this week I've been thinking about the words that we use and how they are effective, but also how by putting them out into the world, they can be hurtful or they can be a blessing. And you never really know. And that's the problem, right? You never really know if you're going to say something that's going to offend someone, or you're going to say something that's going to be comforting to someone. And when you're in a room like this, overflowing with lots of opinions, thank God, someone's going to really like what I have to say, and someone's really not going to like what I have to say. And that's okay. I'm a rabbi. I know that. But that's a really big part of this week, at least for me, is how to use words wisely. And thank goodness our Torah teaches us the right way and the wrong way how to use words in this week's Parsha, in Parshat Behalotcha. So if you do have a sheet in front of you, I'm sorry that this microphone sounds distorted. Does it sound distorted to all of you? Oh, some of you are saying yes, some of you are saying no. See, you're proving my point. That's very good. Okay. So let me see if this one's better. Is this better? Oh, wow. Okay, great. We'll use this one. Okay. Better? No, not better. It's the same. Okay, you know what? That's great. You can hear me. Yeah, that I'm never worried about. Okay. So this part of our parsha, this is not the beginning of the parsha, but this part of our parsha starts off with a moment where Aaron and Miriam go up against Moshe for making a decision of who to love. And what do they say? And I'm going to take us through this pretty quickly. So there's going to be much more text on this sheet than we're going to actually get to. They say, "V'tedaber Miriam ve'Haron b'Moshe al odot ha'isha ha'kushit asher lakach ki isha kushit lakach." It almost doesn't even matter what a Cushite woman means. You're welcome to look into it. It almost doesn't matter, though. What are they saying? What are Aaron and Miriam saying? We don't like who you married. Right? And they're not about to get married. They are married. They're partnered. They've been together for a while. And Miriam and Aaron go up to Moshe and they say, bad choice. We don't like the choice that you made. Now, this happens to be because being a Cushite meant being from a different tribe. It also meant being a different race. We believe that a Cushite woman was a black woman, that she came from a descent that then we can follow into modern day, right? But the idea here is that Miriam and Aaron are using their words in a way to do what to Moshe? Hurt him. There's nothing good that can come out of this sentence. They're already married. This wasn't like, oh, you started dating someone, we aren't so sure about it. They're already together. They're deliberately saying something to hurt him. Now, I don't believe that that's why they thought to do it. I think they thought that they were being helpful, not sure exactly how. But I think they thought they were being helpful. I don't think they were trying to hurt Moshe, but they hurt him, right? Nothing that they said in this sentence was going to be good. So if you follow down this paragraph here that I gave you, you'll see the next point is that God is extremely angry at Aaron and Miriam for doing this. Probably for the same reason that we all are. What's the point? Why'd you do that? Not necessary. Also rude and terrible and not a way that we should talk about anybody, right? So when God starts to speak to Aaron and to Miriam, God makes it very clear, how he speaks to Moshe. And in the bolded words in the English you see here, that I'm going to read it in the Hebrew, Pe el pe adaber bo. I speak to Moshe mouth to mouth. What does that imply about God's relationship to Moshe? There's no space. Known. What was the other thing someone said? Very close. Yeah, it's a personal, it's two-way, great, beautiful. It's not I'm going to speak to you, but it's we are hearing one another. It's also intimate, right? You don't talk to people that closely to their face unless you really know them, or you shouldn't. If you do, maybe think about it. But you should only speak to someone who you know very well that close, right? You should not be in someone's face who you don't know that well. And the idea that it's reciprocal, the idea that there's relationship here. Umar'eh velo bechidot v'tmunat Adonai yabitu madua lo yiratem ledaber be'avdi Moshe. With Moshe, I speak mouth to mouth, plainly and not in riddles. Right? I get to the point. I say what I need to say. This is God talking. And he beholds the likeness of God. And in return, Moshe understands who I am. Right? There's a reciprocity here. We understand one another. We communicate well with one another. Keep going. As the cloud withdrew from the tent, there was Miriam stricken with snow white scales. Okay, so what happened to Miriam now? She got leprosy, right? She had some kind of skin something or another, right? That it seems like you don't want to have, right? What's the 1, 2, 3 here? What happened? Why does she now have leprosy? Yeah. Great. Okay, hold on one second. So Marlene said the reason that Miriam received this, let's call it punishment, is because she spoke up to her brother, and now there seems to be a consequence. Yeah, Marlene.
So how come Aaron doesn't get one?
Right. How come Aaron doesn't get one? Yeah, great question. So Aaron, it seems the rabbis seem to talk about how Aaron got his own sort of punishment. The rabbis want to be nice to him, you know. Marlene's making a face. It seems to be that this was not the first, quote, offense, right? That Miriam had done something like this. It also, and I'll just say what we're all thinking, it was a lot easier to give her a punishment than it was Aaron. Aaron was more of a pronounced leader. Aaron was a person who we looked up to. Miriam, now we look up to as this amazing leader. But in our Torah, she was not the person who we were needing to look up to. Yeah, David.
Well, Miriam initiated that.
Okay. Okay, great. So the idea that Miriam's name is said first might mean that she initiated this speech against Moshe, and so maybe she's the one that gets the punishment. Mike?
I was going to say maybe it should be read metaphorically.
Okay.
You might talk about somebody face going white
Okay.
out of embarrassment.
Okay, beautiful. So Mike is not reading on, even though he knows the Torah very well, in that maybe what we're saying here about this leprosy is that not actually that she had some kind of skin disease, but that she went white as if she was embarrassed. It seems to be, not that I would ever say to Mike Harris that he was incorrect, it seems to be that we continue on with some kind of ailment that is not just embarrassment, but it is the case that our rabbis and our tradition believes that if you embarrass someone, it is as if you have killed them, because the color goes out from their face. So if you're like me, all the color goes to your face. So maybe you're really alive. But this idea here that maybe she was made to be embarrassed, and therefore it was as if she was being killed. Yeah.
So I'm always perplexed, not by the punishment.
Yeah.
But I'm perplexed why this shows up here.
Okay, great.
Okay, we assume this is Zipporah, but
Yeah.
we don't know that for a fact.
Right.
We haven't seen Zipporah
Good.
since this incident had happened when Moses was sick
Right.
on the way back to Egypt and circumcised her son.
Right,
We
right.
don't hear from her again.
Right.
The only thing I can connect here is
Yeah.
we just had the people murmuring
Yeah.
because, we didn't have meat and they got meat and they had a plague.
Right.
And then this happened.
Yeah.
And I think I see the connection.
Yeah.
I see the connection because why would all of a sudden, they're slandering
Yeah.
his wife
Right.
for no reason.
Right. So Mark's pointing out that it seems like this is a very random place to be doing this, because it's possible that it's Zipporah. It's possible it's Moshe's wife, who we know from earlier on in Exodus. But we haven't heard from Zipporah in a very long time. We haven't heard from, we actually never hear from Zipporah, but we haven't heard about Zipporah in a very long time. And so it's possible this was a different Cushite woman, right? And so could it be that this is here because of all the murmurings and all of the complaining that the Israelites just did? And so now this is coming up, and it's a completely different case, story, relationship, whatever, what have you. And so it seems a little bit out of place. For the past 2 weeks, I've given drashot about why is this in the Torah here. So I couldn't give that drash this week. But yes, it's a very, very good point. Okay, last one, Rabbi Chorny, and then we're going to go on.
Good point.
Okay.
One. Last one. It could be that Aaron's being punished by having to diagnose Miriam's.
Very nice. Okay.
because She doesn't, according to what we read earlier in the Torah,
Yeah.
it's not Sarah until the Kohen.
Yeah, beautiful, beautiful.
And I'm not a doctor. I don't even play one on TV. But you can imagine that it is very painful for a doctor to then
Sure.
try to diagnose their own family member.
Sure.
Or for a lawyer to have to defend their son or something like this.
It's a really nice point.
So there's that.
Wait, can I say your first point first?
Sorry.
Just so people can hear you. Rabbi Troni's his penultimate point, to the last point, is that maybe Aaron's punishment, I think that's a beautiful idea, maybe Aaron's punishment is the fact that as a Kohen, he had to be the, quote, doctor who had to diagnose the Tzara'at in Miriam, and how difficult it must be in that role to diagnose your own family member, or as Rabbi Troni said, how difficult it is to litigate against a family member if you're a lawyer, et cetera, right? That relationship, that intimate relationship, makes it more difficult to do the job you might actually have to do. And in this case, that would be Aaron's punishment. Beautiful idea. Your second point.
The other thing is
Yeah.
that we are reading about Kibrot Hatava, this place of death because of, I don't know if the word is lust or craving.
Yeah.
And it could be that this is placed here because it is an inherent human thing to crave, to speak about other people. It's very tempting always to put someone down. And so there's a sense of a connection here of like, just like you might crave meat,
Okay.
you also crave this kind of
Right.
conversation
Right.
that we need to abstain from.
Interesting. So maybe in a part of our Torah where we're being taught to not necessarily go with our urges, right? Whether that's because we don't have a certain type of food like meat or something that we're used to, or this idea of us as human beings wanting to talk, whether that's in a beautiful way or in a negative way about someone, to kind of step back from that urge and not to have it. Just an interesting point, and then we'll go on and probably only read one or two of these commentaries. The idea of Lashon Hara, everyone thinks it's bad speech, like if you say something bad about someone. It's actually not the case. Lashon Hara is just speaking about somebody, not in their presence. So even if you say a wonderful thing about somebody, it's actually still considered Lashon Hara, even though you're saying amazing things, because they can't stand up for themselves. They can't say, oh, but actually that's not true, or that story's not right. So it's just an interesting thing to think about, right? We all, therefore, when people say to me, I'm trying not to do Lashon Hara. Okay, yeah, me too. And if you're talking about anybody, again, in a glowing manner or in a manner that you shouldn't be, you actually are engaging in a way in which you're not speaking so nicely because you want those people to be able to be there. I see you, Adrian, but I need to move on or else these people are going to kill me. Okay. Okay, so then the last part of this that I want to bring up is that Moses cries out to God as a blessing of healing for his sister, and all he says is El na refa na la. Doesn't mention her name, mentions God's name, doesn't mention what she has, doesn't mention how, doesn't mention what, just says, oh God, pray, heal her. That's it. So if we're going with this idea of how do we use our words, our rabbis are extremely confused by this. Why is this the blessing that you give for your sister to be healed? Right? Is this enough? It doesn't seem to be very long. We know that everyone else speaks for a very long time. Shouldn't you be giving her a big, Gazunta Mishaberach? Why just these words? Why is this all that she needed? Okay. Because of the time, we're only going to look at two commentaries. The first one is actually on this same page right after. So Rashi says, El na refa na la. Torah intends to teach you by this form of prayer the correct attitude in life. That if one is asking a favor of their fellow person, they should first say 2 or 3 words of supplication and then solicit the favor. Moshe needed to know that in order for God to hear him, and what Rashi's saying is even for human beings to be able to hear us, we need to let ourselves in a gentle way, right? Not just cry out or scream out, but to enter into that relationship gently, to say something nice about the person. You've probably all heard of the whatchamacallit sandwich. What's it called? The compliment sandwich, thank you. Where you say something nice about something, then you give them a bit of constructive feedback, and then you say something nice at the end, right? That doesn't always work in every single conversation you're going to have always. But in order to ask something of someone, it's nice to be able to hear that. Okay, go to the second page. Okay. I'm just trying to decide which one I want to do. Okay, we're going to do two, but very quickly. So the Dats Kanim says, El na refanala, right? Same line that Rashi just commented on. And the Dats Kanim say, the first word na is to be understood as a plea, right? When you really want something, you ask for it deeply with emotional response and with a way of really leaning into it. Whereas the second time he uses the word na to mean now. This word can mean both of those things. It's not a play on the word in any way that's not definitively correct. But when you think about the way that we ask for something, maybe even now, right? Maybe even in a world where we are really helpless and feeling hopeless about how to ask for something or yearn for something, you first do it emotionally and really just pleadingly, and then you want it to happen immediately. You want it to happen right now. You want that healing to come right now. So the Misha Berach that we say whenever we have the Torah out is a beautiful way of reminding us of the people in our lives who are in need of healing. But for those of us who feel close to those people whose names we are saying, it's all lovely that we're saying a blessing, but we want that healing right now. Right? The blessing is fine and good and a way for us to connect to God and to community in that moment, but what we want is the healing. And the Dats Kanim is very aware of that in Moshe's blessing. I would also say as a sister, I wouldn't know what else to say other than make him better, right? When you're in a place where all you want is something that is overwhelming to imagine, sometimes you don't have the words to be able to craft paragraphs and essays about how to get that. Sometimes you just have a sentence that shows all the emotion you need to make it happen. Okay. I want to look at Rabbeinu Bachya. Yeah, Mark. What? And she wasn't healed now. Right. Right.
She didn't get any preferential treatment.
Correct. Correct. 100%, right? Which is the other side of a Misha Berach, right? Like we never know if it's going to be something that actually is going to work, right? Okay, so Rabbeinu Bachya is the last thing that I'm going to say. Moses cried out to the Lord. He expressed his pain over Miriam's fate and prayed for her. The reason the Torah continues with the word lemor was to tell us that this prayer by Moshe was not merely in his heart, but that he verbalized it. So this commentary was actually the whole reason that I came up with this teaching, because sometimes you can have a lot in your heart, maybe overwhelmingly, but then you have to put it out. And what does it sound like? What does it look like? How do you get those words out? This is the meaning of Brachot 31 from the Talmud. If someone prays, he must move his lips and enunciate the words of her prayer. The reason is that by moving one's lips, the letters one says assume a certain shape through the use of voice, breath, and verbalizing them. When such a prayer has assumed a certain shape, it ascends to celestial regions and arrives in the presence of the Lord. In the box below, I put Baruch She'amar V'haya Ha'olam, and those of you who are here for Psuke, which was actually a good number of you, I mentioned that this is something we were going to talk about. We don't just think our words. We put them out into the world. And write a sermon about that someday. And the fact that we have a way of thinking about prayers in our heart and in our mind, and then we put them out, what our rabbis is telling us is that that's actually extremely important. When we say the Shema, we're not supposed to just say it silently. We're supposed to move our mouth and say every single word. Marshall Kramer does a beautiful job of this. We're supposed to feel the words. We're not just supposed to hear them in our minds. We're supposed to feel them. We're supposed to say them. We're supposed to hear them. That's what's most important. And so, as one of your rabbis, I will not always have the words. And the words that I share will not always be the ones that you want to hear. And sometimes I'll miss saying words that I should have said. But I think just like any human being and just like the Torah that we're reading here, anytime words come out of our mouth, that means that in our heart and in our mind, there are many words that aren't being said. And I think for all of us, what we need to have the courage to do, and what our rabbis are teaching us to have the blessing to recognize as human beings, is to share those words more often. To share those words without fear of how they will be read, but knowing that by getting a blessing out into the world, that by getting a message out into the world, that too is creating. And so I pray for all of us that this week, this weekend, is full of blessings, and that they're not so overwhelming inside of you that you can't share them out loud, but that you share blessings with somebody, that you allow them to hear the blessings that you're thinking, the worries that you have, the fears that you have, and be able to put them out into the world, because that's how we're going to build this world and repair this world together.